Hi, welcome back to Flipping Pages Stirring Sauces. It is very early in the morning and it is raining outside, and I can hear the raindrops on the roof, but it's nothing like the raindrops on the zinc roof in Jamaica that just rocks you to sleep, especially during mango season. But anyway, as I've said before, Flipping Pages Stirring Sauces is an unusual name for this platform. However, it was born out of my love for cooking, baking, eating, reading, writing, and being a mother. And I must apologize ahead of time because I will mispronounce words. I will misread sentences. And so please accept my apology ahead of time for that because I'm not a perfect human being. And I also want to say thank you to my subscribers and to the people who have liked and shared. I really do appreciate that. I would like to say shout out to my godson. And we are going to be picking up with Mourning in Silence at chapter 4, which was written by me, and it is about a miscarriage that I had. And one of my subscribers have asked me to read The Making of a Slave, the Willie Lynch letter. The Making of a Slave. So I'm going to be getting to it after I am finished with Mourning in Silence. And I also just want to say that I did put the recipe for the banana bread in the description in my previous in the previous segment. So if you would like to make the banana bread, the recipe is there. So try it out and let me know how it turned out. But I will be baking banana bread with you. I'm not sure if I'll be doing that before or after I get to Willie Lynch, The Making of a Slave. But if it's not before, it will be right after. And so going to pick up now with Mourning in Silence by Arlene Kemenzuli. So we're going to get right into it. Chapter 4. I started a new full-time job in March 2000 at a different company after the 2-month contract with the previous company had turned into an almost 2-year stint. I was working long hours and started having some back pains when I became pregnant. I decided to take a vacation with Vincent to my beloved Northern Green Park in Jamaica. Benjon was extremely busy at work and could not get the time off. Before leaving, I noticed that I was spotting, but I did not take it seriously. I thought that it was just a little spotting and that it would stop. The trip was long and exhausting. My mother met us at the airport. When we got home, my father was standing on the veranda, and the first thing he said to me was, "You're looking a little fat." I looked at my mother and asked her, "Didn't you tell him?" "Tell him what?" she shouted at me, making it sound like she did not know that I was pregnant when she was the only one besides Vincent and Benjon who knew about the pregnancy. I was very annoyed and thought to myself, why can't this woman ever come through for me? I was suddenly very aware of my pregnancy and was embarrassed by my father drawing attention to it in a public way right in front of the cab driver. My mother's behavior did not help the situation either, and I just wanted to turn around and go back home. While I have no problems or issues discussing pregnancy, lovemaking, and sexuality with my father-in-law, I did not enjoy the same relationship with my father or mother precisely because of situations such as the one that had just happened. My worst nightmare was realized on October 14th, 2000 at 7:20 p.m. I miscarried. I wanted to be home with my husband, but of course I could not, and so I did the next best thing. I took out my diary and started writing. Dear Benjon, I am sorry. I'm losing our baby. I don't know how or why this is happening. My parents have put me on strict bed rest, but Vincent will not stay with them. He will not leave me alone. It is impossible to get comfortable as he's constantly jumping up and down on the bed and crawling on top of me. He clings to me like a magnet. The bleeding started in transit, but it was too late to turn around. Things were out of my control, and I did the only thing that I could do. I prayed. The bleeding stopped. I thought that everything would be okay, but it was not. I am staying in the bedroom just off the veranda. On Tuesday night, instead of going through the back bedroom, I left my room door open and walked across the veranda and down the hall to the kitchen. The grill was closed and locked, so I did not think that anything could get in. When I came back to my room, I closed the door and turned the lights off. I was laying in bed when I heard something moving in the room. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it in the direction of the noise. I was frightened out of my wits when in the corner I saw the biggest bullfrog that I've ever seen in my life. When I saw the frog, something went terribly wrong inside of me. I could feel it. It felt like something was released from me, and it was not a good release. I screamed for my father, who was on the other side of the house. I could hear him trying to get in from the veranda, but I told him to go the other way through the back bedrooms because I did not want the frog to jump on him when he came in. I turned my flashlight on the frog. My father was astounded at the size of it, but he showed no fear of it. He opened the door and slapped it with the flat side of the machete that he carried with him. It hopped out onto the veranda and through the opening in the grill that it had come through. The next day, my father secured a barrier to the grill to prevent any more intrusions. I was so frightened by the frog that I didn't really sleep. Wednesday, October 11, 2000 was uneventful, but I noticed that my belly, which was firm and taut when I arrived, was a little mushy. Still, I didn't think anything of it until I took my shower Wednesday night and saw pink on the wash rag. I told my parents, and they sent me off to bed. I spent all of Thursday in bed, and there was no bleeding. I was not allowed to do anything, not even pick Vincent up. They thought that he was stressing me out. I spent most of the day in bed on Friday, and again there was no bleeding. This morning when I woke up, I felt great, so I did the dishes and spent the rest of the day sleeping or resting. When I woke up this afternoon, the bleeding started again. This time it was red and clotted. The bleeding is getting heavier and heavier. I told you that I did not think this baby would survive, and now I wish that I had not verbalized my feelings. I am never going to forgive myself for killing our baby. I should never have taken this trip, but I wanted to get away and rest. I wanted to get away from the pain and stress at work. I guess this is the half that Dolly was talking about when she told me so many years ago that I was going to have 2.5 children. I wish I knew what I did wrong. How am I going to tell you that I've killed our baby? My mom said that I shouldn't cry anymore because the bleeding doesn't necessarily mean that the baby is lost. She went on to say that she bled for 8 months when she was pregnant with Robin. I am so scared. I know that if you were here, you would make things better. My father doesn't want me to see any of the doctors because he doesn't trust them. He said that all of Jamaica's good doctors are practicing in other countries. He advised me to just rest and see the doctor when I get back to Toronto. I've prayed, but I think that my prayers were not specific enough. I keep hoping that it is a nightmare and that I will wake up. October 14, 2000, 9:35 p.m. I just miscarried. The baby looked like a deflated balloon. I cannot describe it in any other way. I am no longer in physical pain, but a new kind of pain has begun. My mother and father are sleeping. Vincent has been asleep since 6 in the evening, and he is still sleeping. I feel so alone. You trusted me with your children, and I have killed one. I wish I knew what I did wrong. Please, please, don't hate me. October 16, 2000, 9:35 p.m. The silence is so thick I could cut it with a knife. I miss you something awful. I just want to come home, but I'm so afraid. I would like to spare you the sorrow and the pain. If there is a lesson to be learned, what is it? How can I learn from this when I don't even know what the mistake was? What will your reaction be? Will you hate me or will you love me, comfort and forgive me? Thank Allah for Vincent. These past few days have been rough. I see him in a whole new light. October 17, 2000, 2:04 p.m. Dear Benjan, my beloved Green Park has become a place of sorrow for me. The second pain that I spoke about before still lingers, but there's another pain. It started this morning and it feels like I am having another miscarriage all over again. I am passing clumps of blood the size of cherry tomatoes. My father has given me some bush medicine. It was horrible and bitter. I've never tasted anything so bitter in my life. I am short with everyone, including Vincent. I have been using all of my physical strength since we got here to keep him from hurting himself. He appears to be having the time of his life, while I suffer silently. He has not given his toys, the ants outside, the dogs, the goats, the lizards, or the bugs any peace. He kills everything that is smaller than he is, and he growls at everything else. Yesterday, one of the lizards showed him a bright orange thing under its neck, and he pointed at it and said, "Wow, mommy, look." He is not afraid of the lizards, but he's afraid of the dogs and the goats. I think that is why he terrorizes them. Today he put his shoes on properly all by himself. He was so proud of himself, and I was proud of him as well. Today they took the roof off the house in order to replace it, and as such there has been constant banging. Vincent slept through a lot of it, and right now he's on the veranda killing ants. He drops caramel corn crumbs all over the veranda and waits for the ants to come, and then he stomps on them. Since we've been here, I've only gone as far as the gate. That was the second day after we arrived. Vincent told me that he wanted to go for a walk, and that is how far we got when he decided that he was ready to go back to the house. I am hoping that by Thursday I will feel well enough to go to Maypen Town, but I don't think that my parents will let me go. They're watching me like hawks. They want me to stay in bed, but bed is the most dangerous place for me right now. Ever since I lost the baby, Vincent has been hitting me. He tries to jump on me, and when I sit up, he jumps up and down on the bed, which causes me a great deal of pain. He's behaving strangely, and I just cannot get comfortable. I want to come home right now. Saturday seems like it is an eternity away. The phone company assigned my father his phone number 2 years ago, but still there are no phone lines. He started a petition which everyone in the neighborhood has signed, and he submitted it, but there is still no response. The breeze feels nice against my face today, but there is nothing magical or special about it anymore. I went upstairs only once since I've been here, and that was the night we arrived. It seems like it was so long ago. Many creatures have lived a lifetime since then. Vincent is throwing a tantrum because he wants a pen that I am writing with, and I will not give it to him. Writing to you eased the pain and relaxed to me, but now it is coming back. I am going to try to calm him down before I get aggravated. October 17, 2000, 9:05 p.m. The bleeding is not as heavy as it was earlier, but the pain is just as bad. I try to avoid my parents because they insist that I drink horrid tasting home remedies to help with the pain and to flush my system. I've made up my mind that I'm not drinking any more of it. Nothing has worked so far except to make me vomit. I am still not allowed to do anything, including picking Vincent up. I can feed him light meals, but that is it. My mother bathes him and prepares his meals. He is starting to wander with them around the house and the yard, but he always comes looking for me. He is sleeping now and sweating, but I have to keep him covered because the mosquitoes have had their way with him. I wish that you were here. I would do anything to hear your voice right now. I miss you. It is so hot and the nights are hard and lonely. I lie here and beat myself up. I know that another child will not replace the one or two that we've lost. I would like to have another one as soon as possible, but you may not trust me to carry such precious cargo again. I wouldn't blame you, but if you do trust me, I promise that I will do everything right. I will not take any chances. I knew that I should not have taken this trip and that something was going to go wrong. I was not excited about it, but I listened to both of my inner voices. One said, "Don't go." The other said, "It is your destiny. Go." Some destiny. You do not deserve the pain that I've caused. My main concern now is to protect Vincent and return him home to you safe and sound. Saturday is so far away. I am going to turn the lights off now, but I will not sleep tonight. The roof is off, and I must protect Vincent at all costs. While he sleeps, I will keep watch over him. October 18, 2000, 5:50 a.m. Dawn is breaking, and I can hear roosters crowing. Vincent is due to wake up any time now. I am going to try and get a nap. It is now 11:30 in the morning, and I did not get the nap that I needed. It feels like much later in the day. I have refused all of the remedies that my parents have prepared, and I am sick and tired of being sick. As such, I have decided to hand wash Vincent's clothes as well as mine. My parents are freaking out because they do not know what to do with me. Vincent thinks that doing laundry is a great idea, and he has decided to help me. Needless to say, he is wetter than the laundry. My parents are desperate and are willing to try anything to stop me from doing the laundry. So they're now offering to take me to the doctor today. They now think that I am hemorrhaging because of the severe pain and the fact that I've been bleeding for more than 3 days. They are really concerned that something is very wrong. They're also talking about changing my flight to an earlier date. I only have 3 days to go before I am due to leave. Why are they bothering? Besides, watching Vincent in action in this environment is my only source of joy right now. I am not about to spoil his fun. He owns the place. One of the goats ran away and has not returned. I guess that it has had enough of Vincent. He just woke up from his nap and the torture has started. He now calls my dad Ruddy and my mother Julie. He calls cousin Lily Lolly. October 18, 2000, 8:45 p.m. Dear Benjon, I just had a great shower. I feel clean and relaxed. I thought to tell you earlier about the other pregnant females around here, but decided against it because I could not believe or admit to the fact that I am envious of a dog and a goat. For days I have watched Shaggy and Daisy waddle around the yard in their pregnant splendor and beauty. I envy them. To add insult to injury, last night I heard Shaggy give birth under my window, and today I saw her puppies. You know that I don't like dogs, but these puppies are 3 of the most beautiful puppies I've seen. She has been in the same spot since last night nursing them. If I hadn't killed our baby, I would be nursing in about 6.5 months and probably wouldn't even have cared that Shaggy has given birth. Maybe there is a lesson in all of this. To appreciate life in all forms and to sympathize with other creatures. Today I feel better than I have in weeks. The same voice that told me to embrace destiny told me to boil 3 orange leaves and drink the brew. I could not reach the leaves myself because the pain was unbearable. My father picked the leaves from the orange tree and brought them to me. I washed them, boiled them, and sweetened the brew with brown sugar. It tasted great, and within an hour the pain was gone. I had a second cup. Looking back, this is something that we drank on a regular basis when we were children. I was able to finish the laundry, watch TV, play with Vincent, pick him up, give him a bath. Doing all of these things made me realize that caring for Vincent may have contributed to the miscarriage. When we first arrived, I was constantly picking him up and chasing after him. He clung to me so much I had to hold him while I prepared his meals, push him around in the stroller, or carry him everywhere because he refused to walk. I had no time to rest, and I could not get comfortable. He's only a year and 7 months old, and I am sure that he thinks that my world revolves around him. I am not angry with him. I am angry with myself. I should never have taken this trip alone with him. I will never do this again. The price is too high. Benjon, you probably think that I don't have any faith in you or our marriage, but I do. I also know that you wanted this baby just as much as I did, and now it is gone. These types of losses cause people to do things that they do not ordinarily do. I know that you love me enough to forgive me, but I know that it will be hard for you. Hopefully by the time Daisy has her babies, I will be back in Toronto. My parents are actually letting me go to Flipp'n tomorrow. The bleeding continues, but it is not as heavy as it was. I must go to the hospital as soon as I get back to Toronto to make sure that everything is okay. Vincent is dreaming about you. He just rolled over and said, "Daddy, Daddy," and some other words that I didn't understand. I am so tired that I am just going to cuddle up to him and go to sleep. I'm feeling hungry as well. I'll probably go down to the kitchen later and have something to eat. The roof is still off, but it would be impossible for anyone to get in without waking us up. You're probably very lonely. I know that I miss you a lot, and I think that Vincent does too. My parents are concerned. I am hiding from them the extent of pain that I'm feeling. I overheard them saying that I am hiding my pain well. Really, it is not as bad as it was. I love you. Good night and sweet dreams. October 19, 2000, 9:40 p.m. Babies everywhere. Beautiful, with rolls of fat in their little arms and legs. Chubby cheeks, new, innocent, clean and soft. Mothers to be everywhere. Big, beautiful high bellies. Glowing, waddling, happy. That was Flipp'n town today. How did I feel? I wanted those babies to be mine. I wanted my belly to be big with pregnancy. I did smile at one young mother and say to her, "Your baby is beautiful." What she did not know is that I wanted to hold him and caress his little fingers. I wanted to smell his newness and caress his soft skin. But most of all, I wanted him to be mine. I went to the kitchen last night to eat, and I woke up early this morning with the intention of making breakfast for Vincent and boiling some more orange leaves. But Vincent woke up early as well and did not go back to sleep. My pain-free experience yesterday was a calm before the storm. The pain cut across my belly like a jagged razor, and even though I was wearing heavy-duty overnight protection, the sheets were bloody. I spent a half hour in the washroom passing huge clots of blood, almost non-stop. My mother was shocked to find out that Vincent had not yet had his breakfast and that he was in the washroom with me the entire time. When I went back to bed, the pain was so bad I was prepared to accept any brew. So I asked my mother for one of her home remedies. She told me that if I intended to leave the house, I could not take the remedy, as it is designed to cleanse the body. my heart sank because I could not handle the cleansing on top of everything else. Mother started naming off all the painkillers that she had in the house. And I thought to myself, all this time I have been in this pain. And it did not occur to any of us that a couple of Advil tablets would probably have solved the problem. I took 2 Advil tablets, and within 20 minutes the pain was gone. However, I continued to bleed, but there was no more clots. I do not understand why none of us had thought about conventional painkillers when I had been suffering for so many days. I got ready and put Vincent to sleep because I didn't want him to see me leave. I would not have been able to stand it if he started crying for me and I could not take him with me. The taxi was supposed to arrive at 10 in the morning, but it didn't. It was still not there at 10:45, and I worried that Vincent would wake up before it arrived. My father and I and Sammy, a family friend who was working on the roof, decided to walk to the main road. I knew that they weren't going to let me go to Maypen by myself, and I also knew that my time there would be limited and monitored. My mother was freaking out about us walking to the main road. The road is so bumpy for you to walk that distance. At least put your running shoes on, she said. I heard her, but the last thing I was going to do was wear running shoes with my sundress. At the last minute, my father went back into the house for something. This is his regular habit. Whenever he is going anywhere, he always goes back into the house for something. This time, it was for the telephone company documents. And I knew at once that my plans would be severely curtailed because he had his own agenda. Sammy and I walked on ahead of him. We talked about my parents and the fact that they can never leave the house on time. We discussed Dorman, Heather, Lennox, and the antics they used to get into when they were kids. The reason we were discussing these 3 particular siblings of mine is because they lived with Sammy and his parents for a while when the rest of us immigrated to Canada. During the walk to the main road, I got to know Sammy on a different level. He is a deeply caring man, and I thought to confide in him about the loss of our baby, but I decided against it. I am not strong enough yet to discuss it. Sammy knows that I am not well, but he doesn't know what is wrong with me. Looking back and sharing my feelings with you, I think he could have probably helped me with what I was going through. You see, his first child was stillborn, and he had spoken about it to my mother with great ease, not knowing that I was pregnant at the time. I remember thinking that I do not know what I would do, nor what I would have done if my child were stillborn. Less than a week later, I was faced with losing our baby. I can only imagine how it must have crushed him because his baby had hands, feet, eyes, a mouth, and sexual organs. I was not able to see any of that on our child, but does that make it any easier to deal with the loss? My father finally caught up with us and joined in the conversation. The walk from our house to the main road is probably about 2 miles, and it was not easy for me because I was wearing heels. They were not high heels, but you know the shape the road is in, and moreover the sun was searingly hot overhead. I was hot and sticky and also worried about the effect that walking was having on my body. Instead of taking the most direct route to the main road, my father decided to take a curvy route which took twice as long and insisted that we go with him. I hate curvy roads. I was not pleased with his decision and told him so. He got an earful in a decent kind of way from Sammy as well. We didn't have to wait long for a taxi, and as soon as we got in, my father told the driver that he was chartering him to take us to Maypen to take care of some business, and then to take us home. This meant that the driver could not pick up any other passengers. However, there was already one passenger in the car, so he drove her to her destination and dropped her off. He then drove us to Epic Hardware to straighten out an order that my father had placed the previous week. They just could not get the order right. The girls in the accounting department and at the order desk are a bunch of dipsticks with attitudes. I got tired of the nonsense they were trying to give to my father. I intervened and ended up resolving the problem with the owners of the company. They finally got the order right. From there, we went to the telephone company. There was a long lineup, and my father decided that he was going to go up to the next available service person, but she told him he had to wait his turn and to take a seat. My father took a seat at one of the empty desks, and Sammy and I sat in the waiting area. Sammy told me that he liked the way I had handled the people at Epic Hardware because it did not leave any room for error. My mind was on other things because it seemed that all the pregnant women and new mothers in Jamaica had some sort of business with the telephone company today. They seemed to appear out of thin air. I thought that the Creator was playing with my emotions in a very cruel way. In retrospect, I think that because of my loss, I was just more aware of pregnant women and new mothers. With two people still ahead of him, my father cut the line and sat in the chair where people were being served. Realizing that they were not sending him back to his place in line, I went to see if he needed any assistance. A well-groomed woman who was probably not quite in her right mind was arguing with one of the representatives. She was saying, "I don't understand why you want me to pay November's bill when I don't talk in the hello part of the phone yet for November." The representative appeared to be perplexed and did not know how to explain prepaid billing to the poor soul. She told the lady some sort of story that did not make any sense, and the woman left more confused than she was when she arrived. The service person tried to give my father a similar story along with some attitude. It took me about 5 minutes to straighten her out and get the truth. The attitude disappeared in a hurry. I did not scream or shout at her, but she became a victim of my anger, which had nothing to do with her and everything to do with my obsession over the loss of our child. When we left the telephone company, Sammy took us to meet his better half. She is beautiful, with nice, strong teeth and an exceptional personality. I wanted to stop in the market to visit with my mother's friends, but buy some fruits and other local treats, but I felt rushed and was only able to visit for a few minutes with Auntie May, one of my mother's oldest friends. It angered me that I was not able to enjoy Maypen Market the way I usually did. Sammy went home and I bought some jerk pork for my mother before getting into the taxi with my father and going home. I am looking forward to Saturday because it means that I will be back in Toronto with you and Vincent. I am hoping that nothing else will go wrong. Chapter 5. I cried all the way to Norman Manley International Airport, and the entire drive was a blur. In all of the times that I've gone to Jamaica, my father has never escorted me to the airport. This time he did, and he did not take his eyes off of me. I do not know what my father was thinking, but he watched me like a hawk through the side rear view mirror, all the while pretending to listen to the driver's one-sided conversation. My tears were flowing unchecked. I held Vincent's arm as if my life depended on it. The truth is, I was afraid if I let go of him, he would just slip away, and I would not be able to retrieve him. He appeared to be oblivious to my tears and my pain. Looking out the window, he would say, "Big truck, cool car," or "Look, a motorcycle." We said goodbye to my father and the cab driver and checked in. People around us sensed that something was wrong. Some stared at us. Others looked but did not want to get caught looking. Others said things like, "Cheer up, darling," or "Sweetheart, whatever it is, it will pass." Others actually asked, "What is wrong, honey?" I kept it short and just told them that I had suffered a loss. People were very sympathetic and willing to help. Vincent made friends with 2 teenage girls who were sitting behind us on the plane, and they kept him entertained. Turning around and playing with them through the little space between the seats kept him happy and well behaved. I cried until I had no more tears. I tried to focus on Vincent's giggles, which brought me a certain degree of comfort. I was able to play with my son and even smiled at him. When he fell asleep, I put his head in my lap and listened to his breathing. He looked so handsome and peaceful. I stroked his face and felt truly grateful to have him. The immigration officer at Toronto Lester B. Pearson International Airport looked very serious, almost unfriendly. I thought about moving to another queue, but it was too late. He was signaling us to come forward. I cannot remember what he said to me, but I started crying again because I was physically and emotionally drained. My knees felt shaky and ready to buckle. When Vincent saw me crying, he said to the immigration officer, "You are mean. My mommy is sad because my baby sister is not in her tummy anymore. I am telling my daddy you are not nice." My son was only 1 year and 7 months old. But in that moment, I felt he was 10 feet tall, and I could not have been more proud of him. The immigration officer did a 180-degree turnaround. He apologized, shared his sympathies, and added, "I can identify with your loss. My wife just recently had a miscarriage." He arranged for someone to escort us and our luggage to the lounge where Benjamin was waiting for us. Vincent was so happy to see him. I was happy to see him as well. But again, I felt my knees were going to buckle, and I started wondering how I was going to tell my husband that somehow I managed to kill our baby. Benjamin picked Vincent up, hugged him, and kissed him. Vincent put his arms around Benjamin's neck and with his head on his father's shoulder started telling him about the ants and the goats and showed him how the dogs growled. It was a beautiful sight that I have committed to memory. He buckled Vincent into his stroller, hugged me, kissed me, and said, "Welcome home." I pushed Vincent in his stroller while Benjamin carried our luggage to the car. Once the luggage was in the trunk, he buckled Vincent into his car seat. We were exiting the parking lot when Benjamin asked me, "How is the baby?" These were the words I did not want to hear. And when the answer did not come fast enough, he stopped the car. I was finally able to say, "There is no baby. I miscarried." He turned the engine off and exclaimed, "What?" He saw that I was crying, so he held me and rocked me. He told me that it was all right. We cried together, and then he was silent, too silent. His silence bothered me, and I did not know what he was thinking. He did not ask any of the questions that I wanted and needed him to ask. We drove home in silence. Once we were home, Benjamin wanted to talk about everything except the loss of our baby. All I wanted to talk about was the loss of our baby. I went to bed feeling very guilty and isolated. I did not know what was going on in my husband's head or his heart, and I really wanted to know. Benjamin took me to the hospital the next day where I provided a detailed account of the miscarriage to the doctor. I knew that my baby was dead and gone, but the doctor told us that it was probably just spotting and that I was probably just spotting and had not suffered a miscarriage. He got Benjamin's hopes up. I was furious with him. It became clear that he had not listened to a word that I had said. Passing blood clots the size of cherry tomatoes and having a deflated placenta is not a little spotting. I was tested for the human hormone that confirms the state of pregnancy. And when they got the results, the doctor told me, "You suffered a miscarriage. The hormone levels are nowhere as high as they should be at this stage in the pregnancy." Benjamin looked crushed, and for my part, if looks could kill, the doctor would be dead. I was looking at him with venom in my eyes and thinking, "Wow, doc, aren't you brilliant?" He advised me to follow up with my family doctor, who would arrange a series of tests for me over a 3-week period to make sure that the human hormones in my system were decreasing. He could not answer the one question that I wanted him to answer: why my baby died. He offered a lot of speculation, but nothing concrete. He then told me that 3 in 10 women suffer miscarriages and that I could start trying again after my next cycle was over. Was that supposed to make me feel better? I was so angry I could have squashed a grapefruit. I was also angry with my husband because he was not allowing me to mourn or grieve. He would not share his grief with me, and I could not share any of what I was feeling with him because he did not want to talk about it. I gave him my diary because I wanted him to know that I was a mess inside. Emotionally, I had gone into a sad, lonely place where guilt resided. I wanted to get out, but I just could not do it. After reading my diary, Benjamin's only response was, "Don't blame Vincent." He pushed the entire thing into that place where he puts all of his anger and hurt and refused to confront it or discuss it. He buried himself in work as a way of dealing with it. I returned to work and carried on as if everything was normal, but I was mourning in silence. And my guilt became bigger than life. I cried in the shower in the mornings, and at night I silently cried into my pillow while my husband and child slept peacefully. 1 month after I returned to work, one of my colleagues, who was almost 4 months pregnant, miscarried. When she returned to work a week later, I hugged her and said to her, "I am sorry for your loss. I know exactly what you're feeling." My supervisor, who overheard me, stood up and said, "How can you say that to her when you've never had a miscarriage?" Turning to her, I said, "I can say it because I've had a miscarriage." She was surprised at my statement and went on to share with us that she too had suffered a miscarriage. She said she had suspected something was wrong when she asked me about my vacation, and I told her that Vincent had a good time. However, she had not thought that it was something so serious. Others joined in the conversation, admitting that they too had suffered miscarriages and had found it hard to talk about it at first. There were 10 women in the department at that particular time, and we found out that 5 of the 10 had gone through a miscarriage. The other thing we had in common was the guilt, because we thought that we had done something to cause a miscarriage. We all wanted to know why it happened. Some of us had answers, but the majority could only speculate. One of the miscarriage, which was more like a stillbirth because of the stage the woman was at in her pregnancy, had taken place 5 years previously. Yet she was still in mourning. Suddenly I did not have that overwhelming desire to keep my miscarriage a secret anymore, and I wondered why I felt that way in the first place. By the end of the day, it seemed that the entire office had some knowledge of my miscarriage. Some came up to me to say that it was nature's way of getting rid of a deformed or mentally challenged fetus that probably would not survive outside of the womb. I know that they were trying to help, but it offered little comfort to me. They say that there are no stupid questions. I disagree. Here is one that should never be asked of a person who loses a baby. Was it planned? Whether it is planned or not, it is a loss, and a planned pregnancy does not make the loss any less painful. Never say, "Oh, you weren't that far along." It doesn't matter how far along one is. For me, the bonding process started the minute I found out that I was pregnant, and I was very much in love with my child when I lost it. Never say you're young, forget about it, you can have another child. One child does not replace the other, and I should know. As soon as we were able to start trying, we did. Months went by, and when nothing happened, I sank deeper and deeper into what I can only call depression. I was living in that place where guilt lives, and it became more difficult when the due date of the child that I lost arrived. I was an emotional wreck, and everything in my life was being measured in terms of if my baby had survived. If my baby had survived, it would have been born today. If my baby had survived, it would be sleeping through the night. If my baby had survived, it would be sitting up. If my baby had survived, it would be crawling and cutting its teeth, etc. I took prenatal vitamins, which caused me to gain weight. I ate right. I walked. I prayed. I did everything that the doctors told me to do. I even stood on my head and nothing happened. I just could not get pregnant. I was convinced that I would never feel another baby move inside of me. It seems that someone around me was announcing their pregnancy on a weekly basis. I watched them grow into big, beautiful, pregnant women, and I was envious because it was not happening for me. But what hurt the most was that the women who did not want to get pregnant and were not trying to get pregnant did get pregnant. Being pregnant became an obsession, and I constantly talked about it. In mid-August of 2001, I mentioned to one of my coworkers, who was very pregnant and beautiful, that Benjamin and I were discussing adoption because pregnancy was not happening for us. She said to me, "Why don't you get some ovulation sticks?" Ovulation sticks? What are those? I asked her. They work the same way as a home pregnancy test. You pass urine on the stick, and if it turns blue in both windows, you're ovulating. I found this hard to believe, and I honestly thought she was pulling my leg. In my disbelief, I said to her, "You're kidding me, aren't you? Does such a thing exist?" She convinced me that these sticks do exist because she had used them to get pregnant. With doubts in my mind, I stopped at a local drugstore, and there they were, on the shelf, right next to the home pregnancy tests. Each package contained 5 tests. I purchased 2 packages. I counted the days to when I should be ovulating, supposedly 28 days. And then started urinating on the sticks. This continued for 5 days and nothing happened. On the 6th day, I repeated the test in the morning and nothing happened. I was crushed because I was convinced that I was getting a monthly period without having ovulated. I knew it was unlikely, but I was convinced. After dinner that day, Benjamin and I were sitting on the carpet with Vincent playing with their toys when my inner voice said, "Go and pee on this stick." I went upstairs, sat on the counter in the bathroom, and debated with myself about how I was going to handle my anger if the stick did not turn blue. Thank the Creator, the stick turned blue. Vincent was fast asleep and Benjamin was in the middle of something when I came downstairs. I said to him, "We need to go upstairs now." "Right now?" he asked. "Yes, right now. The stick turned blue." It was 1 year to the date when the baby that we lost had been conceived. I did not tell Benjamin. I kept it to myself. We went upstairs and put Vincent in his bed. We did the upstairs thing, after which I leaned my hips and back against the wall for an hour. What I learned from this little ovulation experiment is that while most women have a 28-day cycle, I have a 30 to 31-day cycle. As such, I was completely missing my ovulation period. One morning in early September, while I was giving Vincent his daily massage, he said to me, "Mama, my baby sister is in your tummy again." He smiled at me, and I tickled his little tummy and squirted baby powder all over his belly. His father took him to the babysitter, and I showered and left for work. On my way, I stopped at the local drugstore and bought a home pregnancy test. It was the morning of September 11, 2001. I was driving along O'Connor Drive at 9:15 near the turnoff to the Don Valley Parkway. I was stopped because of all the traffic that was turning off O'Connor Drive to get onto the Don Valley Parkway. Something was wrong with my car radio. I was no longer bopping to soft rock. I thought something was wrong and I started fiddling with the radio trying to find a soft rock station. No one was playing soft rock. There was a news broadcast that a plane had crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. They were speculating about how many people may have been on board and trying to determine if it was an accident. Then they announced that a second plane had crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. I knew then that America was under attack, and the first person that came to mind was Bin Laden. At the time, I was not even sure who he was, but I had heard his name in relation to other attacks on American interests. I called Ben John on his cell phone to tell him about the attack. He was in the parking lot at his work listening to Andy Berry, the host of CBC Metro Mornings. When I got to work, I told them to turn the radio on because America was under attack by Bin Laden. Some people told me that I should not say things like that because I had no proof. My sixth sense was proof enough for me. When they finally turned the radio on, we heard the report about the plane crashing into the Pentagon and that there were other planes being hijacked. I asked, "What is America waiting for to shoot the planes down?" People looked at me as if I had two heads, and quite a few of them verbally jumped all over me asking, "If you were on one of those planes, would you want it shot down?" Yes, I would, if it meant sacrificing a few hundred to save the lives of thousands. You bet. None of them understood the logic behind what I was saying, but I feel certain other people felt the same way. The point that I was trying to make is that no one knew for sure how many of those planes were going to be used as weapons, or even where they were going to end up. The only options were to identify them and shoot them down. It did not come to that, but in the end, the powers that be were thinking the same way that I was thinking, and I felt vindicated. We speculated that the CN Tower was probably a target, and that we would be next. But even though it did not happen then, does not mean that we are not being targeted for the future. We can bury our heads in the sand and say that we are a nation of peacekeepers and try to ride on the coattails of Canada of the past. But we need to remember that we live in a world where the devil and his angels run rampant for now. We did not get any work done that day because the entire department went down to the gym to watch as much as we could of the broadcast from Ground Zero. When we were not watching TV, we were glued to the radio. During all of that chaos and confusion, I did find time to do the pregnancy test. The stick turned blue. As I watched the stick turn blue, I thought about all the parents who had kissed their children goodbye that morning and who would never come home again. It was then that the magnitude of what had happened hit me, and I realized how precious life is and that it should never be taken for granted. I called Benjamin and asked him if we could go to the Rock. I was not taking any chances this time. By the time we picked Vincent up and arrived at the Rock, it was almost dark. Benjamin had his suspicions about why I wanted to go to the Rock. When I told him that I was pregnant, his reaction was more subdued than the first time when I delivered a message there. He hugged me and he wept. There was no sunset to watch, but it was good to see that the CN Tower was still a part of the Toronto skyline. We gathered Vincent up because he wanted to go wandering into the lake. When we got home, we had a quiet dinner, discussed the events of the day, and went to sleep. I woke up the next morning knowing that a dreaded first anniversary was fast approaching, and I wondered how I would cope with it. So we're going to leave it there for now and pick up next time at chapter 6. If you've enjoyed your time with me, I humbly ask that you like, subscribe, and share. And even if you didn't enjoy your time with me, I ask that you like, subscribe, and share. And as I've said, the recipe for the banana bread is in the previous segment. So if you want to make my banana bread or try my banana bread, you can find the recipe in the previous segment and let me know how it turned out. I wish you Baruch and Shalom. Until next time.